if you have any issues, please text me on the group chat. We are going to be recording the session, so that if you need it for the future, okay? All right, so welcome to this session. This is for the comparison between the ACT and the SAT, specifically for the math sections. First, I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Yomna Sami. I've been teaching ACT and SAT math with Newton, helping students get better results in their exams. What is Newton? Newton is an educational services company that's not a center. It's established since 2013, and we provide lots of services for different courses such as the ACT, pre-ACT, the SAT, pre-SAT, EST, IELTS, TOEFL, GMAT, GRE, everything basically. We provide also advising for applying for universities abroad, and we provide university fairs for schools so that it helps you choose your university. And we also can manage scholarships for universities in Egypt and abroad for both undergraduate and graduate studies. All right. So this session is mainly focused on the comparison between the ACT and the SAT. I know most of you are probably in going into grade 11, so you want to know which exam to take. So we're just going to have like a quick comparison that puts things more into perspectives. But both the ACT and the SAT are very prestigious, top-notch American standardized tests that's accepted in most universities. And it's used for admission. They usually want a cutoff score for the admission for the universities. It's a requirement for American diploma students. It's a must. The rest of the systems, you don't have to do it. But sometimes if you're applying for universities in the US, they require it from any student, regardless whichever system they graduated from. So you might be, for example, doing your IGCSE, but if you're applying for a university in the US, they might ask for the SAT or the ACT scores as well. So how can you choose between these two tests? I'll take you through a comparison between both tests. And if you have any questions, please keep them in the chat or keep them for later. We'll have a specific time for all the questions. All right. So starting off with the ACT. The ACT is a digital exam here in Egypt, and we have 3 different sections: the English, the math, and the reading sections. The total time for this test is 2 hours and 5 minutes if you don't take the science, because the science section is optional, and it's 2 hours and 45 minutes if you take the science section. I don't think you'll take it except if it's also required while you're applying. So as you can see here, this is a comparison of all the time for each section and the time per question for each section. How the ACT exam is scored: every section is scored out of from 1 to 36, and then the average of these sections are taken. All right. As for the SAT, it has just 2 sections, reading and writing and math, but each section has 2 modules. So you have 1 module, and then you kind of like have you end it, and there's a small break between so that you can start your second module. Each one is 22 questions. So you have 22 questions and then followed by another 22 questions. So why are they split into 2 modules? We'll get into that in the next slide. But for now, if you talk about scoring, we have 800 from 200 to 800 points for the reading and writing, and 200 to 800 points for the math section. And when we add them up, that's how you get your total score. So the ACT, you take the average. For the SAT, you add them up. So this is a side-by-side comparison for the SAT and the ACT. If you remember how many sections we had for the SAT, we only had 2 sections. So the math score represents 50% of your total score. But for the ACT, because you have 3 sections, your math score represents 33% of your total score. All right. And in terms of adaptive The SAT exam, because it's new, they introduce it as being adaptive. This means the first module, you take the same questions as everyone in the room, but the second module becomes adaptive based on your performance in the first module. So if you're like very good, you answered all the questions, they're going to make it a bit harder and it's going to be worth, the points are going to be worth more. But if you didn't do so well, they will give you a bit of easier questions so that you can actually perform better in the second module. The ACT, however, is not adaptive. Adaptive is the same questions for each with the same difficulty level. It starts off easy, then medium, then goes into difficult questions. So how many questions do you have for each of the exam? We have 44 questions for the SAT and 45 questions for the ACT. So they're similar, but how much time do you have per question? For the ACT, for the SAT, you have 1 minute and 35 seconds. For the ACT, you have 1 minute and 7 seconds. You might think that this is like, but why not the SAT? You have more time per question. But actually, for the SAT, you don't only have MCQ questions, multiple choice questions like the ACT. You also have student-produced responses or written questions. This is when you don't have any choices and you have to get to the answer yourself. So you can't, for example, use methods like elimination or trying to find like the testing the answers to find the best answer. So you have to do all the work yourself. That's why it gives you a bit more time. But obviously, you will not need this 1 minute and 35 seconds or 1 minute and 7 seconds for each question. The easy questions should take less time and the harder questions would require a bit more time. But the topics for both tests are almost the same. They include the same topics, but the focus of the topics is a bit different. For the SAT, they focus more on like heavy algebra and advanced math. For the ACT, it's mainly, it tests each topic equally, like algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. So it's not like focused on a specific topic. And here in Egypt, they're both presented in a digital form. And again, if you have any questions, just feel free to write them in the chat and we'll answer them when we have time for the questions. Now we're going to go through some sample questions with almost the same topic and same difficulty, and we'll see how it's different between the SAT and the ACT exams. So starting off with an easy topic and an easy question, this is about percents. So here, these are both SAT and ACT questions, and they're both very wordy questions for a math question, obviously. For the SAT, they're asking what? A specific type of drug in a patient's bloodstream is metabolized and eliminated at an hourly rate of 37%. If the initial intake of the drug is 500 milligrams, which of the following functions Q models the remaining amount of the drug in milligrams? T hours since the drug was given. So here we want to create a model for the drug in the patient's bloodstream. Okay, so we have our initial dose, which is the 500 milligrams, and we have an hourly rate of 37%. So we have to recognize, is this 37%, is it an increase or a decrease? Because it's being metabolized and eliminated, this means it's decreasing from the bloodstream. This means I want to get my multiplier to be subtracted, right? So I want to have 1 minus the 0.37, which is 0.6. So automatically, which one can I eliminate? I can eliminate C and A. So what do I want? Do I want to do another 1 minus, or do I just want this 0.63 to the power of T, whatever hours passed since we took the medicine? No, obviously, I want it to be to the power of T, so I'm going to choose my answer to be B. Okay, so this should be an easy question. I can do it in less than a minute. For the ACT question, that's also the same idea. We have Letitia went into Discount Music to try CDs. All CDs were discounted 23% off the marked price. So we have a discount of 23%. Letitia wanted to program her calculator so she could input the market price and the discount price would be the output. Which of the following is an expression for the discount price on a marked price of $P? So here I also have an input, the marked price, and I want to get the output of the discounted price. So this is also another form of modeling using percents. So I also want this discount that's off. So I want to subtract. I want it to be 1 minus 0.23. And then I multiply it all by P, the marked price. So which one of the options will give me the same answer? Obviously, it's not going to be D or C. So we're choosing between A or B. And because I have the P outside, we have to use the distributive property. So it's going to be P minus 0.23. So our correct answer would be A. Okay, so these are both easy questions. And I know some of you might see like it's a wordy question, so you might skip it in the exam because you think it's going to be hard. But if you just highlight what's important and try to get what the answer is saying with the elimination hatta of the choices, you can get your answer. This is another easy question that's related to the topic of trigonometry in both the SAT and the ACT. So for the SAT, let's see how they say the same question. They're saying that the hypotenuse of the right angle XYZ is equal to 5 and the leg YZ is equal to 3 as shown. Which of the following equals to the tangent of angle X? All right, so here what do they want? They want the tangent of angle X, so they want tan X, right? What did they give us? They gave us the hypotenuse and this side, YZ. If this is my angle and I want tan, I want opposite and adjacent. How can I get my adjacent? I can see that this is a right angle triangle, even though they didn't mention it in the question, but I see this square, right? So I can use Pythagoras to get my adjacent, and then I can get my tan. So if I use Pythagoras, it's going to be 5 squared minus 3 squared, which is 25 minus 9. So it's 16, and it's all under the square root, so that's 4. So my tan would be 3/4, and this would be my choice. Let's see how it's different for the ACT. In the right angle, in the right triangle below, they already mentioned to us that it's a right triangle, so we don't have to derive this from the square. The measure of angle C is 90. They also told us that this is a 90 degrees. AB is 5 and CB is 2. What is tan B? So this is more straightforward. They didn't give us a lot of words like the hypotenuse. خلاص, we already know that AB is obviously the hypotenuse. So here it's a bit wordy for no reason, but the ACT is more straightforward. So now, because it's a right triangle, we want to get AC, because this is, to get tan B, we need opposite and adjacent, right? So in order to get the opposite, we'll also do the same thing. We'll do 5 squared minus 2 squared, which is 21, and it's all under the square root. So if I want tan, it's going to be root 21 over 2, so that's F. Clear? So they're both very similar, but it's just a matter of how they phrase the question differently. And here also we have another question for statistics. This SAT question is a student-produced question. All right, because it has no multiple choice questions. So here we have this table, and they're asking us, in a survey of 250 students were asked how often they had visited the tutoring center of their college in a certain period of time. The results are shown in the table above. What's the per student average number of visits in the surveyed first year students? So here's a bit confusing, even though it's a statistics question and it's very straightforward, but we have first year students. So I have to see from the table that I want only the first year students' numbers. Okay. So what do we want? We want the average. So we just have to do the equation or the formula for the average. We multiply each frequency by the number of visits, and then we divide by the total, which is the 60. And this is how we produce our own student-produced question. Then they're asking us what to round your answer to the nearest tenth. So after I'm done, I have to round it to the nearest tenth. And if I don't plug it in with the nearest tenth rounded correctly, then the whole answer will be counted as wrong. So this is like why the SAT kind of gives you more time, and why it might be a bit more difficult for you because you don't have choices. But for the ACT, we have a similar question. To determine a student's overall test scores for the semester, Ms. Lopez throws out the lowest test score and takes the average of the remaining test scores. In Mrs. Lopez's class this semester, Victor earned the following test scores: 62, 78, 83, 84, and 93. What overall test scores did Victor earn in Ms. Lopez's class this semester? So here we have to do two things. First, we know that Ms. Lopez throws out the lowest score. So the lowest score from these is the 62. So we're going to throw it out. And then she's going to take the average of the remaining tests. So we'll just add them up and then divide them by 4, and we'll get our answer. All right. Now, for a bit of a medium difficulty, we have these questions on powers and roots, just because they're not entirely straightforward, but as a topic, it's also easy. For the SAT, they're asking us if 3x minus y is equal to 12, what's the value of 8 power x over 2 power y? Okay, so here it's getting a bit trickier, a bit harder. We have this fraction, and we want to simplify it. How can we simplify it? Using our knowledge of the properties of exponents. So we know that we can change the base, the 8 power x, and we can change the base to make it 2 to the power of something, because we know that 8 is 2 to the power of 3. So this can become 2 to the power of 3x over 2y, right? So what other property do I know? Is that if I have two exponential numbers with the same base that are being divided, we can simplify it by subtracting the powers, right? So I can turn this into 2 to the power of 3x minus y. And what do I see here? I see that the power turned into the same thing that I had in the prompt of the question. So I can replace this 3x minus y by the 12. So now I know that my answer is 2 to the power of 12. So even though it may not seem like it, but this question is actually a medium difficulty. Some may try to substitute the x in the formula or the y in the formula, but this will get you a more complex question, and you might feel that it's very hard, but it's actually like a medium difficulty question. So for the ACT, how could it be different? Their question is, for what value of x is the equation this true? So I should know that basically they want us to have these two, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, to be equal. So how can they be equal? I have to make the powers the same. So I know that 2x plus 7 should be equal to 50. And then I will solve for my x, and this is how I will get my answer. So also they didn't tell you how to find x, but you should know it using your knowledge of powers. Moving on to another question. For systems of linear equations or simultaneous equations. So here we have the SAT question. It's telling us if 5x minus 3y is equal to 7 and 2y minus 4x is equal to 3, then 2x minus y is what? So usually I have my calculator in the exam, so this is a pretty straightforward calculator question. I will put these by choosing mode equation 5. So I will solve these simultaneous equations. I will write just the coefficients, 5, -3, and 7, 2, -4, and 3. And I will get a value for x and a value for y. The question does not end there, because if it would have ended there, then this would have been an easy level. It's medium y because the question asks for 2x minus 2y. So I have to use my answers and plug them into this equation to get my final answer. For the ACT question, a question with this same level of difficulty would be something like this. For what value of A would the following system of equations have an infinite number of solutions? So here I want infinite number of solutions. This means what? This means I want them to be similar equations, almost the same. So how can I make them the same? If I multiply the first one by 3, I will get 6x minus 3y is equal to 32. And I know the 6x is the same as 6x, the minus 3y is the same as minus 3y. So the 4a should be equal to the 32. Then I solve for a to find my answer. So here the trick was in recognizing what an infinite number of solutions means. All right. And finally, for the last question today, oh, I'm sorry, guys. 8 times 3 is 24. So here it's 4a is equal to 24. And then we will find a, sorry, a is equal to 6. All right. And for our last question, this is a difficulty level of hard. And it's the topic of functions. So our SAT question is giving us this parabola and a line. So it's a quadratic equation and a linear equation. And they're telling us that for functions f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 4, and g of x is equal to -1, and are graphed in the xy plane above. And their graphs show that the equations f of x equals g of x has 2 solutions. What does f of x equals g of x means? That when they intersect, where they meet. So they meet twice. So this means they have 2 solutions. Which of the following functions of h represents a set of transformations on f after which the equation h of x equals g of x has no solutions? So this is difficult. Why? Because first I have transformations. Second, I want no solution. So I have to know how to do the transformations in order to achieve this no solution. So what does no solution means? This means I don't want them to meet. So how can they not meet is if this parabola goes up and becomes above the line. If it's above the line, there will be no intersection between them. So what is this movement? I moved up at least 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to go up a minimum of 4. So I have to know that if I go up 4, what happens? I add 4. And just like that, we're able to see it. But if I try to perform all of these transformations and see which one will give me the answer, I'll get very sidetracked with the transformations on the x when the transformations on the x-axis will not matter. Like whether I go left or right, it will not matter in how many solutions I have. Only going up or down will matter in the number of solutions. Now, a similar question for the SACT is that in the standard xy coordinate plane, given parabola with this equation, parabola B is the image of parabola A after a shift of 7 coordinate units to the left and 4 coordinate units down. Parabola B has which of the following equations? So I'm applying all my transformations on this equation. So I went 7 left. This means I have to do plus 7 inside the x. It has to be inside the x. And 4 units down, this means it's -4. So this would be my answer. A lot of you might get fall in the trap of the -7 because I'm going to the left 7, but the correct answer would be the +7, so it would be J. Okay, so I hope this made it a bit clearer of the difference in the questions between the SAT and the ACT. And we will have also a very similar session with comparing both for the English sections. So if you were interested, please sign up. Just use this QR code to fill out the form and receive the link for the session. It's going to be exactly in a week. So next Monday at 3 as well. And it will give you an insight on the difference between the ACT and the SAT questions. All right, I'll just give you 2 minutes if you want to read this QR code and fill the form. Now make sure you keep these questions, the questions that you had through the session with you, because we'll have time for questions after this. Okay. Now, if you're done, please feel free to send in the chat if you have any questions at all so that I can reply to them. I saw a question, someone already sent it, about what does adaptive mean. So adaptive is only in the SAT test, and by adaptive it means it's going to change the difficulty of the questions based on your responses. So for the math, you have 2 different modules. All right. So the first module is almost the same for everything. It doesn't change from one student to another, and it have a mix of questions with a mix of difficulties. And depending on your ability to solve the hard questions and the medium questions and easy questions, they will adapt the second module, which is another 22 questions, based on your performance. So the second module might be more difficult, more challenging, and it will have more weight in terms of the points or the score. Okay, I hope you understood. If there's anything that you still don't understand, please text me again. Does Newton give SAT and ACT courses? If yes, where's the location? That's a perfect question because that was our last slide. Because if you want to join our courses, you can scan this to register for our courses. And we're also going to give you a discount because you attended this webinar for the SAT and the ACT courses. I hope I answered your question, Marwan. And now for Salma. I didn't understand how we know if a system of equations has infinite solutions. All right, so this is a bit specific to the topic. So it's basically that if I have 2 lines, right, there are 2 options. Either they intersect at one point, or either they're parallel, so they never intersect, or either they're overlapping, so they have infinitely many solutions. So here I have 1 solution, here I have 0 solutions, and when they're exactly the same, so they're overlapping lines, I have infinitely many solutions. And of course, if you join our course, I'll explain this in details and how we can do it using the equations itself. But I hope I just got the point across. You're welcome. If you have any questions, we still have time. And please, if you want, scan this QR code to register for our courses. I'll be your math tutor, and there will be someone else for the English courses as well. I'll just wait like 5 minutes. If any of you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yes, yes, Alma, you can leave, but don't forget to just write your name and your phone number to be able to like store your information and give you the discount when you apply for our courses. And you might be lucky also that because some of the campuses, like some schools, we come and we give them the ACT and the SAT questions after school, so you don't have to go to a certain place. Like for example, AIS and Haya, we go to the school after hours and we give you the course right after school on campus. But there's also the option of يعني, not school specific courses. If you have any more questions, please send me. If not, thank you so much for attending, and I hope it was beneficial for you to help you decide between the SAT and the ACT. Thank you so much for attending.